All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. I really do appreciate it. This was an optional event, but to do the judges clinic. But I'm very glad that you're here. We also are recording this. I'm going to put it up on our team YouTube channel and set it out for the people that couldn't make it. But I'm glad you're here. And we're going to go through kind of the presentation. I had emailed you a document that I'm going to kind of work through just piece by piece, highlight a few things about it. And then I'm going to talk about what the events are. And then I will stop the recording and hang back for any questions if there's something that comes up at the end. The chat is on, and I'm going to sort of pay attention to that. And maybe Steve Du Bois will pop into the chat as well and answer questions there. This is a co-hosted, thank you. This is a co-hosted tournament. It is at St. James Academy, but it is by the combined forces of St. James and Aquinas that it is put off. So what I'd like to do before we get lost in the weeds, let's put our first things first, and I'm going to open in prayer. And I'm going to pray in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the sunshine and the brief moment where the sun didn't shine all that brightly but was still out. Thank you for all of the blessings that you have poured out in our lives. On a personal note, Lord, thank you for my family. And for the families that have entrusted their children to the care of these Catholic schools. We ask that you bless our time today, that you sanctify it, and that you make it holy, and that we do it all for your greater glory. Glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, so first thing I want to say before we get into the business, and it is an absolutely sincere statement, thank you for judging. Thank you very much for this. I am convinced, and I think most of the people that are around this activity for a while will tell you that speech and debate is one of the just real foundational pieces in a young person's life. I know this was the game that formed me as a young person. I talk to parents all the time, particularly since I started becoming a speech and debate coach, and they say, oh, I debated in school, or oh, I was on the forensics team in school, or oh, I used to have this oratory piece that I would go and perform, and they always talk about it like that was the best thing I ever did. And I know I have felt that in my own personal life, and so thank you for creating a space for young people to have that as well. This is my favorite game, and I love sharing with people, and now I love sharing with you, so thank you. Thank you to the game. We are so glad that you're here, and I think this is a really fun way to support students. The stuff I'm going to talk about today is not like a list of requirements. One of the things that I often tell my team, and I think most coaches do, is the... funny, Steve, in the chat line there. Okay, is that students say like, oh, do I get counted off if I so-and-so? And one of the things that I have to tell students over and over again is that this is a judged activity. It's not a graded activity. This is a school event, but it's not a school like curriculum for it. And what we have here is not a rubric or a checklist or a what makes a good piece or what makes a good judge or what makes a good thing to go see. All of it is a judgment call. All of it is subjective, and you are welcome to have an opinion on it. You are welcome to make judgments on the work that you get to see today. So this is some things that some people consider, that this is the way that you might want to consider pieces, but I do absolutely want to insist this is not a you must do it this way, because I totally believe in the freedom of judgment and that you get to make the call that you see fit to it. It's the nature of speech and debate. It's the nature of forensics. It's the nature of performance, or really of any kind of artistic pursuit that performers are going to try new things, and they're going to push the boundaries in their craft, and sometimes the audience is going to love it, and sometimes the audience, it isn't going to click with them. And in this activity, you are going to be a judge, which means that we are entrusting you with judgment. You've all been given to us by the members of our community, by the members of our team, as people that they think that your judgment is valuable. So take it as a compliment that you're in this pool today, and I'm excited for it. So I'm going to give you kind of an overview of what you can expect. So when you walk in the doors of St. James Academy, first, park anywhere you want. It's It might be kind of an adventure, particularly if you're coming to the first round, because we have a very full school and we have a kind of a parking lot shortage, which I think every school says. But it might be a little tricky. Find any open spot that you would like that is legal. You know, I mean, don't park in a handicap spot or a fire spot, whatever. But otherwise, any spot you want, and come in the front door. The front door will be available to you there. When you come in, the first thing you're going to see is you'll kind of walk up to the area that is our chapel, our gathering space. There'll be a table off to the side that says judges. And you can come in and say, hello, my name is so-and-so, and I'm here to judge forensics. And we might immediately have an assignment for you. We might say, okay, well, come on into our hospitality lounge, and they'll kind of point you back to the corner where you can have a cookie or a piece of fruit or have a soda, something like that. We do have a small hospitality lounge. I'm going to be real honest, it's going to be a kind of a Spartan affair, at least in the first part. Well, if you're here over the dinner hour, we'll order some pizza in. But you're going to come in, and then when we have a room for you, a room assignment, it'll happen through that judge's table. And the judge's table will assign you to an event into a particular room. They say, okay, you're going to be judging poetry interpretation, and you're going to be in room 2114 or something like that. They're going to tell you right for it. And you're going to go up to the classroom, and you're going to find just a desk, a student desk or a teacher desk, whatever you kind of feel. The students are going to perform in the front of the room, so give yourself a good vantage point for them, and don't stand off to the side, And you're going to be in there for around lasts 75 minutes. Now, actually, we're going to kind of talk about this in a moment. 75 minutes is a short period of time for the forensics world. Usually a round will take 90 minutes. We're trying an experiment of compacting this down a little bit to make it a little tighter to go fit into a Wednesday night. So rounds last 75 minutes, so an hour and 15, right? And a student performer is going to come into you anytime in that hour and 15-minute block, and they're just going to walk in the room, and they're going to have a little piece of paper in front of them, and it's going to be like this, but it's going to be a fancy color onto it, and they're going to come in and say, okay, I'm losing the monitor over here. This is going to drive me bonkers. Okay. They say, can I give you this? And they're going to hand you this sheet of paper, and it's going to have their name on it, and it's going to have the title of the piece that they're going to perform, the speech they're going to give, the book they're going to read, or the play they're going to act out, something like that. And they're going to have some stuff on it. This is for round 1, and their school code 9, and they're in room 2111, whatever it is. And then they're going to walk to the front of the room. Some of the events are a book event. They're going to open a book. They're going to maybe just get into character and then pop up and then go perform. Performance lasts ideally 7 to 10 minutes, depending on what the event is. And then when they're done, they're going to say, thank you, and close their book, and they're going to walk out of the room. And you're going to be just holding this sheet of paper on at the end. And that's going to happen 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 times in a round. So you're going to have this stack of papers that you're going to see, and that's the packet that you have to go judge things with. So during this round, performers get, and if you're following along in this packet that I emailed you out, so I'm kind of in this blue box up here, right? Performers are going to bring you a ballot with their name, their title, et cetera, and they're going to probably have those things already filled out by the student. Sometimes they won't, because they're high school kids, and sometimes they forget stuff. And you're going to, okay, what's the name of your piece? Oh yes, Cat in the Hat, and you're going to write it in there, right? So students perform, and then usually they leave. There is a possibility the kid might do their piece and say, is it okay with you if I go and I watch somebody else perform? And unless you just want that kid out of there, yes, let them stay. It's not a very common practice in our part of the state, but it is a common practice in other places, and it might show up. While your performer kid is performing, while they are reading their piece or performing their speech or their scene, make comments on the ballot. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, specifically what it is. Don't wait until the end. You're like, well, I'm going to wait till I see all 7 of these kids. No, go ahead and make comments while they're talking. You keep your eye contact and you go back down, and it's all the skills that you learned in school and we've forgotten because of a long time since we've been in school. But, where you're paying attention to the speaker, but you're making notes on it. So take notes while the piece is going on. Okay, ranks and ratings. This is one of the stickier parts of this game. On the ballot, there are 2 rows of numbers. I sent out to you a copy of some sample ballots. If you want to pull one of those up and look at it now while we're talking about it, you may have also put it up here on your screen. There's 2 sets of numbers near the top of that ballot, in the top third of the ballot on there, rank and rating. First, I want to talk about ranks. So ranks run from 1 to 10. And being a rank, you want to be ranked number 1. That's the best. You want to be ranked number 1. And our ballot goes down to 10. We're not expecting to have 10 performers in each round, but we would say 1 is the best and 10 is not the best. 10 is not the best. So the best performances are going to be ranked 1 or 2, 3, and then maybe the ones that are not the best, they kind of work their way down. And I would like to ask you to not skip any ranks. So if there are 5 performers in the room, you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Maybe 5 is just a real, like, it doesn't click with you at all. This is a kid that just maybe needs some more practice, and you're like, actually, you're probably ranked 6, but you can't rank 6 out of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's the number is, and there's no ties. Nobody like, man, the one, there was 2 people that are just clearly the best. That's not the way this works. So ranks is only 1. This is going to be very hard. I found in years of judging that if I'm going to watch 6 performers in a room, I'm going to say that 1 or 2 or 3 of them are clearly the best. 2 maybe or so are just kind of like, and then like 1 or 2 are just like, you're not there yet, kid. And sometimes it'll be hard to make meaningful distinctions between who is the 1 and who is the 2, or who is the 5 and who is the 6. We are going to ask you to go ahead and make that distinction on it. And I'll show you in a minute how you can show that this was a really close decision. But you do have to say one person gets ranked number 1, one person gets ranked number 2, one person gets ranked number 3, right? So no ties, no skip the numbers. The second set of numbers is called ratings. So we've asked you to rank people. Now we'll ask you to rate them. And here the numbers flip. They go from 25 as the best down to the lowest score we give is 10. I mean, there are tournaments that go all the way down to 0. I don't want you to go that far, so we're going to stop it at 10. You know what I say on this slide, that these need to go in order. They technically don't have to go in order. They generally do. They typically go in order on there, but you may skip numbers and there may be ties. So what you could do is you could say, this kid gets a 1 because he's the highest ranked person in the room, and he gets a 25. That's like the best performance possible. Rank number 1, 25 ranks, okay, or 25 ratings. That's really great. And number 2, you can say does not have a meaningful difference between number 1. So what you can do is do a number 1, 25, number 2, 25. And what you're indicating to the student is that you're ranked number 2, but I liked you just as much. I just had to pick one person as a 1 and one person number 2. So you're welcome to do ties on ratings. In general, we'd say a score of, a rating of 25 to 20, 23, 24, 25. Those are very, very good performances. They're like, you really enjoyed that. A 22 to a 20, those are pretty good. The student can be proud of a score in the 20s, 20 to 22. Now, when you get to 16 through 19, those are decent performances. The performer has some work to do to make it better, but it's fine. Now, on the ballot that you're filling out, there is a section from 15 all the way down to 10. And we do allow those. They're allowed, but I want to kind of like caution you about those. That's really when something is problematic, when there's some problematic piece to the room, to the performance on there. That's just gonna. I have scored 15s or lower before. When I look at it as like, you know what, this is a piece that is just not appropriate to be doing in a high school public performance. I can think of one piece in particular is like, I'm actually kind of scandalized by this, and I'm a grown man, and you should not be doing this piece. So that scored very low. That's happened once in so many rounds that I don't really expect it to happen at our tournament. But there was one was like, this is bad, and it got a very bad score onto it. But in general, I want you to score in the 25 to 16 range on there. Steve's put an excellent comment here in the chat, and I'd like to share with it. He says, pro tip, assign a rating to the performance immediately after seeing it. Then when all the performers are done, use your ratings to determine your ranks. That way, like, there is going to be something that you kind of remember, sort of the first one you heard and kind of one of the last ones you heard, and you're kind of sorting it out in your head. That is a good, go ahead and put the ratings on. The ranks will sort themselves out. I like to take them, and if I've got a stack of, 4 ballots, I'll just kind of like, as I go, keep putting my favorite on top and then sort of second and third, and I can fill out my stack pretty close at the end. But if you are making comments on your ballot during the round, I think you'll find that this sorts out pretty quickly on that to go. Now, I put on your notes here on the red box down at the bottom, when tournaments have ballot problems, and we're going to try to put as many eyes on this as we can that we don't have this ballot problem, but when tournaments have ballot problems, it's almost always some failure of ranks and ratings. So somebody skipped some ranks, or their ranks don't seem to make sense, or there's people tied up, and the ratings, like, well, this is a 1, but they only got a 15 rating on it. Like, okay, did we do that backwards? We got our ranks and ratings in the right order, something like that. We are going to have our teams give a double check on these. But hopefully we get that sorted out. Now, I'll also say that the last 6 minutes of this time that we've just spent together, this video, this call, is the most confusing part of it. And if your head is kind of swimming, ranks and ratings, be patient, forgive yourself a little bit. When you see the ballot, we've done our best to make this pretty clear. It's also fine at the end of the round to go find a kid in a Catholic school uniform because the St. James students and the Aquinas students will both be dressed in their school uniforms today. Just go find a kid with an Aquinas logo or a St. James logo, and she's like, hey, just can you double check this for me? They will say yes, and they'll be happy to look over it for you. Okay. I'm also going to ask you very nicely to give good feedback on these ballots as you're filling out. And I ask you to make comments on the ballot as you go through. While Steve and I are very concerned about the ranks and the ratings getting correct, all of the performers that are coming today, all of the high school, not today, on Wednesday, all of the high school kids that are coming to go do their thing in front of a judge, they care about the ranks and ratings, absolutely. But they are also very concerned about the comments. They want to know what people thought about what they did, which makes a lot of sense, right? Like if we go do something hard, and man, forensics is a hard activity. It's so hard to do. If you go do something hard, you want feedback from the people that saw you do it. So please give good feedback along the way. You good? 1 second. What's up? I had $2 for popcorn. No, kind of. Kid's watching the Running Revs game up here and he wants to go buy some popcorn. Okay, so parenting as we go. I want you to give good feedback. Speech and debate is an educational activity. That's why we do it in schools. That's why these have a classroom component to it. This is an educational activity, and one of the strongest ways for someone to grow in their skill and to get better and learn about what they're doing is to get good feedback at what they're doing. So if you see something you like, absolutely put that on the ballot. Man, a kid's reading this piece and she's got all the voices down and she's like differentiating the characters and how they're standing are different people. And the voices match the stance, match the text on it. Write that on the ballot. I really enjoyed your voices. These characters are so distinct. It's as simple, maybe it's as simple as you really enunciated well because, hey, we know high school kids and we know that they are not always very good enunciators. You have really nice diction is a heck of a compliment, really. So give them something that they can do to grow in their skill. If you see something like, put it on the ballot. The best judges will find something they like in every performance. Now, I'm also going to say, if something in the performance is not working for you, also please put that on the ballot. Students need to know what they can do to improve. It's absolutely important that they do that. And it's actually going to bring us to one of the parts that I think people who are new to judging speech and debate have the hardest time with. I think in their hearts, they have the hardest time criticizing a person they don't know when they know that that kid is trying really hard to do something hard. And so adults just don't want to criticize kids. They don't want to be critical to a performer you know that is trying their best. We know these kids work hard. We know that they want to do their best. But listen, There's somebody in this room that's going to get a 6th rating. You're going to say they are the 6th best performer in the room. It's the savage part of this game. And if they look at their ballot and the ballot is full of compliments, oh, your characters are so good. The storyline is so beautiful. Your voice is so pleasing. I was mesmerized by your performance. You got a 6 and you got a rating of, 17. You look at this, you're like, I got a 617, but the judge looks like they loved this thing. Please give negative feedback. I mean, it sounds so savage to say, and as a teacher, I care so much about, like the well-being of my students and their hearts and the way they feel. Please give some negative feedback, because this is a competitive activity and because people want to do good, they want to have a good performance. Give them something they can work with. If it's just as simple as, your piece didn't really work with me. I think I'm your wrong audience. That's not an ideal comment, and I'll explain later, but you do get some judgment. You're like, this, I just didn't enjoy it. Or you're really good with the 2 characters that dominated the performance, but the 3rd one just wasn't very good. And as you're switching between characters, you kind of lost me on the 3rd one. Or you've written this speech and your logic is great, you just didn't have as much evidence as some of the other performers did. That is totally fair-minded criticism. And it's not mean. It's not like, you know what, you're terrible at this. You should take up plumbing, right? Like, we're not being insulting, but give them some fair criticism they can work with. Students read their ballots with the coaching staff. In every program that I know of, the kids get their ballots, they get it almost immediately after the tournament. We're on the bus and we're driving back and all the ballots are being passed out along the way. And kids, there's every range from like, oh, this was so great, I really enjoyed this round, to like, oh, this person hated me, which is never true. I mean, not my experience anyway. Most people don't get hated, but the students see it in an educational context. They read them with their coaches, with their teachers along the way. Give them something they can work with. Now, be kind. Be kind. They're still kids and they're still learning. And this is a school activity for amateurs. These are not professional auditions for a Netflix show. They're not. Their next stop isn't probably going to be Broadway. This is amateur. It's not even theater. It's amateur, academic performance. And you're going to see some pretty great stuff. You're going to see like, man, kid, you're a really good speaker. Like, I really like your speaking. Or I could really imagine you doing something with this. But mention something that you like. Give them some criticism to work with. Be kind. They are kids learning a game. And the last thing I'm going to say this before I kind of move on from it is be the best version of yourself. And at St. James, my class, we are reading one of these Matthew Kelly books in class. We just do a couple of chapters on it a day. And I have mixed opinions about Matthew Kelly, but I like how he keeps coming back to it. It's like, be the best version of yourself. Be the person that God made you to be. Be the best version of yourself. And I think that's pretty good judging advice too. Be the best version of yourself. Now, I do need to throw a couple of pieces of caution about feedback on here. First, please just don't comment on a student's clothing or their appearance. They're not helpful comments. There is a range of expectations from families, from coaches, from schools, from culture, from judges. I mean, I think Steve does the same thing I do. We tell our students that we have a dress code. There are ways that you present yourself. This is a judged activity. Let's show our best sides to the judge. We are, trying to be professional looking speakers or performers. Let's look professional. So we have a certain dress code on it. Not every school has that philosophy. In fact, there are some schools that seem to have an opposite philosophy of that, as a come as you are, go be your authentic self and dress your authentic self. Listen, all these kids are, caught in a handful of like conflicting expectations. Please just don't mention their clothing. Even a compliment, you'd be surprised how it gets misconstrued once it gets put through, all the machines from it. So please don't mention an appearance or clothing at all. Just do us a favor onto that. And I'm also going to say, not every speech that you're going to see, not every script you're going to see, every performance, every selection is going to be to your taste. There's going to be some that you say, whoa, kid, you're bringing that to go do it in a Catholic school. Woo, that's a risky move, right? Some things I would say, okay, right now a common subject that we're seeing a lot in performances are kids are dealing with dramatic issues. A very frequent flyer that we're seeing in rounds is a question of school shootings. It seems very real to young people. It's a script they can come up with a lot. And I don't know, I mean, me as an educational professional, I really don't like school shooting pieces. They sit really differently with me than maybe what they do with other people. But if I'm in a round, I need to evaluate the round that I have, not the round that I wish I had. Not everything is going to be my life experience. Not everything is going to be my point of view on it. So please be sensitive that people are going to come in with things that are important to them and they want to share it. One of the things that we often say when we're trying to build our teams and get kids into this program is we say, hey, one of the advantages of forensics is that you get a room where an adult kind of has to listen to you for 10 minutes. So there's going to be some people that are doing something that's important to them, a script that's important to them, a speech that's important to them, an idea that's important to them. Give room for it. It's pretty awesome when it happens, it's not always to my personal favor, but I'm happy to share it with you. Okay, after the round, you've seen your 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kids that are performing there, and you're done. You know that you've seen them all. You'll just stand up and you'll walk out of the classroom and you're going to turn in your completed ballots with your ranks correct and your ratings correct, and you've got good feedback on, maybe both sides of the ballot on it. You can write on both sides; they'll get the whole paper. You're going to turn in your completed ballots to one of the kids at our host school. So whether that's an Aquinas student or a St. James student, anybody in a Catholic school uniform, they can take your ballots. We've kind of assigned them like, hey, you're going to watch these like 4 rooms and go gather any one out of it. They're going to look for you and they're going to look over the ballots before they're going to let you go. Like, let me just, check these are filled out right. And if you are in the judging pool for the next round, then come on back downstairs and go back in and get yourself another couple of grapes and go fill up another Dr. Pepper and check in with the registration table, the judge's registration table, to go to the next event. And hang out in the hospitality lounge. There's some snacks and drinks. It's a welcome place to rest during downtime. It's also adjacent to our chapel. It's our favorite place at St. James. Come on in and spend some time in the chapel as well. We've also opened it up to all of the students who are at our, all of the kids are coming to perform. They're coming from as far as Junction City today, like on Wednesday. So it's going to be great. But everybody's invited in there. It is a working chapel. We have mass in there 5 to 7 days a week. But you can come in for quiet prayer on it. It's pretty awesome. If you are there over the dinner hour, we're going to have pizza brought in, and come get some pizza. And that's kind of the mechanics of forensics. You get your assignment. You go to your room. The kids bring in the ballots one at a time. You give feedback, you put them in order of the best performance to the not best performance. You circle the numbers, circle the things. And when you're done, you hand it to the thing and you go back to your next room. And that's a round. We're going to get that done in about an hour and 15 minutes, about 75 minutes or so gets that turned around. Now, the kinds of things you're going to see, this is our last major topic of the day. There are 11 speech events, speech and drama events in the forensics season in Kansas. And we generally say they fall into 4 categories: acting events, book events, limited prep events, and platform speaking events. I often compare forensic speech to kind of like track and field, right? In track and field, you've got running and jumping and throwing events. And then there's, some that kind of combine them. You've got, hurdles, which is both jumping and running. Forensic speech is like that. Everybody does a couple of events. Nobody usually does just one event. Nobody does all the events there. They just kind of get in there and mix in. And I want to kind of talk about what those are so you can sort of know what to expect. And I've given you, I think, 4 ballots in the sample ballots packet. There's 11 different ones. They're all going to be they're super fun, different colors around. But I want to start off talking about what are the acting events. The acting events, we generally identify 3 of them. There is dramatic interpretation, humorous interpretation, and duo interpretation. Humorous and dramatic interpretation are a 10-minute performance, and somebody's going to do a scene, and it might be a 10-minute play that has a whole story arc. It might be a 10-minute scene from a larger piece. It might be a entire movie plot condensed down into 10 minutes. I don't know. It could be a variety of things. And there are, if it's dramatic, they're usually pretty serious topics. If they're humorous, kid's going to try to make you laugh. They're not always funny, but humorous is usually a crowd pleaser on it. And like I said, those are 10-minute performances, no props, no scenery. They might be, this gray wall behind me. I feel like I'm in a hostage video or something, but I'm not in a hostage video. But there's no scene, no costumes, no props. It's just kid in the front of the classroom is going to go recreate this scene. And they might play multiple characters. They might play one character the whole time through. Then there's also duo interpretation. This is the only two-person event that we're going to offer at our tournament. It's two kids doing the same thing, a 10-minute piece on there, performing out of the scene on it. Again, no costumes, no props, no scenery. And the duo could be humorous, it could be serious. It's kind of whatever the two kids want to come up with on there. And they're fun. The interp events are usually fun to see. There are also 3 book events. Now, these are not memorized. All the other stuff is some level of memorized. Book events are not. They will walk in, they will have a small, usually it's a little mini binder. It's, you know, like the half-size 3-ring binder, and they're often black. Some of ours are white, some of them are multicolored, but for the most part, they're black. And they're gonna walk in and they're gonna read prose, which is just, you know, storytelling. They're gonna read poetry, which could include like song lyrics or something like that. And poetry is oftentimes several poems, which are either interwoven or just like come in a sequence like a program. Or there's a 3rd book event called the Program of Oral Interp. A little bit confusing, but they combine some combination of prose, poetry, drama plays, and then prose is pretty widely interpreted as like anything that's text. It could be blog posts or news reports or like actual stories, whatever it is. And they kind of weave those together. But those are our 3 book events: prose, poetry, and they call it POI, the Program of Oral Interpretation. Prose and poetry are 7-minute events, so they're fairly short, and we kind of usually stick more of those people into a room because they're popular events to do for, I mean, people love performing them. And they also stand still, so some of those are kind of some small rooms. And okay, St. James is a curiously small building for the size of enrollment that we have. So some of our rooms where you don't move around a lot, prose and poetry, where they just stand in one place, you basically get like a pivot foot. There is a small step that's allowed, but nobody ever does it. Those are going to be in some pretty small rooms. You're going to be in some office spaces, or maybe a room that kind of looks like a closet. It's not exactly a closet. I'm being real with you. We ran out of rooms. We kind of shoehorned some of them in there. So prose and poetry, those are 7-minute events. The performer stands still. They've got their book in the hand. POI, the Program of Oral Interp, as Mr. Boyce mentions here in the chat, they combine the genres. They want to make a single argument that's usually, I mean, when it's done correctly, is an argumentative, like a persuasive piece. It's something they're trying to persuade you of an idea using other people's words seamlessly woven in together. That's a 10-minute piece, and it allows free movement, so those are in regular-sized classrooms. But yeah, so we've been over our acting events. We've been over our book events. There are 3 events called the limited prep events. And here there are 2 versions of something called an extemporaneous speech. Now, when I was in high school, this was my jam. This was my favorite event. The way it works is all of this happens behind the scenes. If you're the judge, you don't see this part, but the student is working in this room, and they go up to an envelope, and they will pull out 3 current events questions, or just, you know, but current events is probably the best way to explain it. They pull out 3 current events questions, and the performer, she'll look at all 3 of them. She'll decide, well, I like that one, and she'll keep it. That one's okay, she'll keep that one, put the other, I don't like that one, and then from the 3 she draws, she'll choose one. And then she gets 30 minutes to research, write, and memorize a speech that answers that question. All of that happens in 30 minutes. 30 minutes later, she walks into your room. She hands you a ballot. It's got a question written over the top of it. It's a current events question. She'll walk to the front of the room and she will give you a 7-minute memorized speech on it. No, this is like the platonic ideal of how extemp works. But there is United States extemp, which is U.S. domestic issues. There's international extemp, which discusses world issues onto it. And they're going to go and kind of present on that issue for 7 minutes. Like I said, I love this. I was a news geek, especially as a younger person. And if you're a news person, then you're going to love extemp. You're going to love it. It's fun. There's a third limited prep event called Impromptu. And this is a student favorite. As an adult, I'm hit and miss on this one. Like, and maybe that's just because I've seen a lot of them. But the student will draw 3 rando topics. Round one is animated movies, and they're going to pull through and they're going to pull out something that says, okay, this one is Cars 2, which is not on our list. And they're going to have 5 minutes to prepare a speech about Cars 2. And this could be literally, I'm going to tell you about Cars 2. I'm going to recount the plot to you. This could be a take on it. Like, hey, when I saw Cars 2, I had just learned about James Bond, and so it was like a fun way to explore the James Bond world within Cars, which I'm familiar with because everybody loves Mater and Lightning McQueen. Or it could be something that's quite tangential to that, and it's like, I don't know anything about Cars. I never liked the Cars movie, and I want to talk about what it feels like to be an outsider on a subculture that other people love, because I never got Cars 2. I never saw any of it, and it's just not a thing that I ever got to, and they're going to talk about how they are an outsider onto it. Whatever it is, the kid gets 5 minutes to go build a speech about whatever topic that they've drawn on, and they're going to go give a 5-minute memorized speech. Kids love this because usually they're kind of light topics on it. We're throwing something a little bit heavy on them, but you'll find if you're in the impromptu pool what that is. Acting events, book events, limited prep events. The last type of event we're going to talk about is called platform speaking events. And this is your classic public speaking piece. There's 2 types of these. There is an informative speech and what they call oratory. We'll talk about oratory first. It's a persuasive speech. It's 10 minutes. It's memorized. The performer has written it, him or herself, and they're going to try to spend 10 minutes to go convince you of something. And hope, this is... I love this event. This is teenage optimism about how to change the world, and it's beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love oratory. It's also a really hard event to do really well, so you're going to see people try something really hard on this one. And you'll see a range on it, some things that are big issues, some things that are kind of small issues, whatever is important to that kid when they're writing the piece. That's a 10-minute memorized event called original oratory, or OO. And the other type of event is called info or informative, or so you'll also hear called Info 10 because it's a 10-minute speech, which other classifications in Kansas, like smaller schools, have a 7-minute version. Anyway, informative, Info 10. This one is the only speech in the forensic season that allows props. They get the visual aids. They're nothing electronic, but basically what we typically see is people bring in a easel and a stack of foam core boards, and they talk about, I've got a student last year who he gave a speech. He just really liked cheese, and he wanted to go give a 10-minute speech teaching people interesting things about cheese. And so he had these foam core boards about cheese and cheese-related stories. And by the end of the season, he was kind of just like having fun, and he would go and he would buy a cheeseburger, and he would actually unwrap and eat a cheeseburger during the speech as he went along. And visual aids are allowed, basically, as long as it doesn't plug in. It's not electronic or batteries. It's considered a fair visual aid. And it's when you see an info speech done really well, it's a real delight to see. Anyway, there are 11 of these events. I've just rocketed through you so fast. You're going to be assigned to 1, 2, or 3 of them, and you'll get a chance to kind of see how it comes down. Also, ask the person that invited you to be a judge, like, hey, what's your event? What do you like to do? And okay, well, I do poetry and oratory or something like that, or I do United States extemp and impromptu, whatever it is. And tell them, get them going. Like, what do you like about this? What's fun to you? What's your piece about? What's your thing about? Kids love to talk about this. Speech and debate forensics. is a wonderful activity. Like I said, it's the game that formed me as a young person. Steve mentions that it's the game that formed him as a young person, but don't. Yeah. And it's awesome. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for showing up on Wednesday. I can't wait to share it with you. We're going to have some pens for you at the thing. So you just show up with a good attitude. If you got a favorite pen, bring it. Come up with a good attitude, eager to encourage people to do something really hard, give them good feedback on it. It's going to be a great night. Thank you so much.